Hello there and welcome back to my workshop. This is the beginning of my new project. I just finished up a tool tote, actually a Pasanki egg tote for my sister, and now I'm going to be making a tool tote for use here in the workshop. Let me show you what I'm making. It's going to be a much more challenging project actually. I like to make these cardboard models to show you what things are going to look like and also to show me what things are going to look like. I like to see things in 3 dimensions. So there it is. It's a very traditional design. You've probably seen totes similar to this. But what's going to make this really challenging for me is the way these corners go. Look at the sides. All 4 sides are splayed out. And that means the corners are compound joints. And I'm putting dovetails on these corners. So that makes the dovetails compound dovetails. And those are very, very tricky to make. These are the most difficult dovetails I have ever made. So let's have a look at a compound dovetail. Here is a test piece I did. And you can see the dovetails here. And nothing is square. I'm going to pull this apart if I can. Nothing is square on these. Everything is at a strange angle. And take a look at those. Can you see that? Difficult to lay out, challenging to saw and to chop because it's very easy to saw or chop something that you don't want to saw or chop. And then it comes together like this. I'll put it together. Joins together like that. There we go. Now fortunately for me, I'm not the first person to make this joint. Other woodworkers have. And a few of them have made excellent YouTube videos on how this all goes together. So I've put some links below in the description box. You can check those out and it'll be very helpful for you as you try to make yours as well. So the next thing is, what species of wood am I going to use? Well, I used American chestnut on my sister's tote, and I think I have just enough left to make my tool tote with the same wood. Let's have a look at the boards I have to work with here. Put them on the workbench. It's one board. Here's the other one. American chestnut. As I said before, it was quite a valuable lumber resource many years ago, and they used it for all sorts of things here in the eastern part of the United States. They say that a quarter of the trees in our forests at one time used to be chestnut. But then in 1904, a fungal blight came through this area and infected the chestnut trees and wiped out all the trees, or just about all of them. And they say between 3 and 4 billion of these trees died. And they never fully recovered. So if you want chestnut, the best way to get it is from reclaimed lumber. And that's where I got these. I bought these from a farmer who was dismantling an old barn, and I paid, I think, $6 a piece for them. So I wish I'd bought more. But let's have a better look at what this chestnut looks like. This actually came from this board. And you can see it's got beautiful color. It works very nicely with hand tools. It's got a nice grain. Looks kind of like oak. But it's much lighter. It's much lighter, surprisingly much lighter than oak. So there it is. Now, I've got a lot of knots here. I've got a lot of splits. I'm a little worried about that. But what I'm going to do is cut this down to smaller pieces that I need. And then I'm going to come right back and we're going to plane this down and see what we have to work with. So, I'll be right back. And here we are. I've got these cut closer to the lengths that I'm going to need, but I don't want to go any further until I scrub these down a little bit with my scrub plane, heavily cambered. So I've got enough here for 2 sides, 2 ends, and the handle. And I thought I'd start with one of these ends here. And what I did was clean this up with a deck brush and got out a lot of the mud out of it. It had mud caked on that. And as you know, mud is just murder on a plane iron. So I've got that cleaned up. And now we're just going to see what we have to work with here. Quickly get set up for that. Oop. A bit of a rocks just a little bit here. Okay. Let's get these out of the way. Okay, I think that'll work. Now I noticed got a little bit of a crown on this board. So, and it's right along here. This area right here. So I'm going to knock that down first and see what we have here. You can see it's not looking too bad. It is getting flatter. Here's a little more work, obviously. Doesn't look too bad, actually. Just a little bit of a bow right in here. So I'm going to go right to my joiner here, my number 7. See how we do with that. You hear that? So I'm hitting the high spots here, and you can hear that as I go. And check the wind again. Wow, I'm looking out here. This board is actually cooperating on camera, and that's a miracle. Okay, here we go. Okay. It's good there. That's looking pretty good. Check that wind one more time. And If that looks good, we'll proceed on. Wow. Okay, I'm happy with that. I don't want to remove too much because I don't have a lot of thickness to work with. I want this to be 5/8 of an inch thick. It's about 3/4 right now. The sides will be 3/8. So I'm going to go with that. And next step is going to be clean up these edges, and then I'm going to use my wheel gauge to scribe the depth line along here. So that is the next step. I'm not trying to get these perfectly square. I just really want to clean them up so I can see my scribe marks. That's all I got to do there. Close enough. And now I'm going to scribe our thickness on here. Where did I put that gauge? Here it is. So I'm going to mark those. Don't know if you can see them at home, but I can see them here. There we go. Our camera person took the hint. Okay. Now, I just want to put a little bevel on this side here so that I don't have much tear out as I plane this down. So let's do that. See here. Maybe I'll use this plane here. It works there. Okay. Whew. All right, I'm going to clear this off here and get set up for some planing of the other side. We'll be right back. All right, we're set up for planing across the grain here. Simply 2 bench dogs and a board between them, and that's going to support my board like that. You can see it rests nice and flat on my bench top because I've got a nice flat bottom on it. So now we're just going to remove some of the material, cross grain, and then we'll switch to long grain again. So let's see how this works. Okay, that's as close as I want to go cross grain. Now we're going to switch back and take this right down to our lines with our joiner. Notice it sits nice and flat on the table now. It's because I've got a nice flat side. So let's get this out of here. What a mess. How are we doing there?
Good.
Good?
Mm-hmm.
Now I want to sneak up on my lines, and I'm getting there. Beautiful wood though, by the way. Look at that. Gorgeous. Now that's the one side, that's the more planed side, and there's the rougher side. Both beautiful as far as I'm concerned, but looking nice. A little high over here. Okay, so that is really, really close. I'm going to fine tune that, and we're going to be in good shape. Now I've got the other ones to do, so you'll be seeing some of that also. But we'll do that, and then we'll work on cutting these boards to the proper dimensions that I need them to be. So let's continue on. All right, our boards are straight, they're flat, they're thicknessed, they're cut to width, and I think they look great. These are going to be the sides, and they're at 3/8 of an inch, and these are going to be the ends, they're at 5/8 of an inch. And have a look at this. This is the side that I flattened, and I removed a minimum amount of material to get it good and flat. And then on the other side, I planed off a lot more material to get it down to the thickness that I need. So I've got this kind of heavily planed side here, which looks nice, and it looks quite different from the more rustic side over here. So I've decided I'm going to use the rustic side for the outside of my tote and the nice plain side for the inside. I think that's pretty neat. And now the next step is going to be cutting an angle on the ends of these boards and cutting them to length. And that's where it gets a little bit tricky, and I'll show you why. Here's our practice joint here. These sides are going to be tilted at 30 degrees from vertical, and they go together like that. But this end is not cut at 30 degrees. It actually is cut at 26.5 degrees, and it has a 14.5 degree bevel on it. Now, what's going on with that? Well, this is a compound butt joint that's dovetailed together. And that means that this angle, 26.5 degrees, is actually a function of these two boards tilted as they join together at 90. Now, I know that's kind of hard to figure out. It's kind of hard on my brain too, but that's how it is with this kind of joint. Now, how did I arrive at that angle? There's a couple different ways. You can take the boards and prop them up at the angles you need them to be, and then trace the projected line on there with your pencil. Or I could use a complicated math formula, which I didn't feel like doing. But what I did do was use an online calculator. A fellow by the name of Chris Glad has a website, and he's got an online calculator. You type in the numbers, you type in the slope, the number of sides, the angles they're joining at, and what you get are those numbers that I just mentioned. So all due credit to Chris for that great online program. You can check that out in the links below. So that's where we are now. Where to from here? When we come back, this is the end of show number 1. When we come back, show number 2, these ends will be cut to size, and we're going to start right away with the making of these baselines for my dovetails and scribing them very accurately at the angles that I mentioned. Then I have to lay the dovetails out. Then I have to saw, chop, and fit this together. So much going on for show number 2. I'm going to try to get it out as quickly as possible. And that's the end of show number 1. So until we meet again, thanks for stopping by, and see you next time.
Wasn't that great?